Hi everyone, I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today I'll show you how to make the half skirt of the Lumen vest dress set. It includes several parts: the skirt body, the edging, the waistband and buttons. First, crochet the skirt body. Once completed, crochet the edging around the corresponding area of the skirt body. After that, pick up stitches along the corresponding sections of the skirt body and edging to crochet the waistband. Finally, attach the buttons. The half skirt comes in two sizes, and the method of working is identical for both. Only the stitch count and row count vary slightly. Let's begin with crocheting the skirt body. Start by crocheting the starting pattern. Then, work back and forth upward from the foundation chain. Several crochet stitches are used, and all are clearly marked on the chart. I won't go over each one here. Now, let me demonstrate the crocheting method. To make it easier to watch, I'll demonstrate using cotton yarn here. Colors are used randomly. For specific yarn, color schemes, and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Start with a foundation chain. Hang the yarn on your left hand. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. Make a knot. This starting knot doesn't count as one stitch. Gently tighten. Then work 5 chains. Next, insert into the first chain's braid. Pick up the top strand above it. Work 1 FPDTR. Yarn over the hook 3 times. Insert the hook into the corresponding position. Yarn over and pull through. Here, slightly lengthen the loop. Keep the stitches loose. There are now 5 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. 4 loops remain. Yarn over and draw through the next 2 loops. 3 loops remain. Yarn over and draw through the next 2 loops. Yarn over and draw through the remaining 2 loops in once. 1 FPDTR is completed. This also serves as a starting pattern. The patterns here vary in size. Work the next size of starting pattern below. First, work 4 chain stitches. Then work a treble crochet into the position of the FPDTR. Wrap the yarn around the hook twice. Pick up the stitch of the FPDTR. That is, the larger braid below the chain stitch. Pick up the front strand and the left strand. Insert the hook into these 2 strands at the same time. Then yarn over and pull through. Similarly, slightly enlarge the loop. There are 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. 3 loops remain. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops again. Yarn over and draw through the remaining loops in once. Complete the treble crochet. The starting pattern is now complete. Continue to work the second starting pattern. I'll demonstrate once more. First, work 4 chain stitches. Then insert the hook into the stitch of the previous treble crochet motif. Pick up the front strand and the left strand. Work 1 treble crochet. This completes another motif. Continue to follow the chart and work the corresponding number of starting motifs. In the following motifs, the treble crochets, always insert into the stitch of the previous treble crochet motif. Insert the hook into the front strand and the left strand. Also, keep the stitches loose here. Continue down and finish all the remaining motifs. Complete the last starting motif. The casting on section is now done. Since the starting position of row 1 has shifted, you'll need to break the yarn here. First, make 1 chain stitch to secure. Leave a small yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Pull tight. Leave the yarn tail unsecured for now. Now begin crocheting row 1. Refer to the chart to find the join yarn symbol. Then pick the center gap of the corresponding starting motif. That is the gap between the chain and the treble crochet. Insert the hook there. Then take the yarn again. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Place it onto the hook. Pull through. Adjust slightly. Be mindful that the knot doesn't show on the right side. The yarn joining is now complete. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain. This is the turning chain for single crochet. It doesn't count as 1 stitch. Work 1 single crochet in the same position. At this point, place the yarn tail over your hook. Crochet and weave it in as you go. Then continue with 4 half double crochets in the same position. 1 DC, 2 DC, 3 DC, 4 DC. Then on the left, pick the center gap of the adjacent starting chain pattern. Work 1 single crochet. Then make 5 chains. Continue to pick the gap of the next starting chain pattern. Make 1 single crochet. Pick the gap of the starting chain pattern on the left side below. Work 4 double crochets. Then work a decrease using front post treble crochet. Yarn over twice. Insert the hook into the gap of the pattern on the right side of the current motif from the front. Pull out the needle through the gap of the current motif. Yarn over and draw through. Slightly enlarge the loop. Then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Repeat 2 times. 1 time. 2 times. After completing here, the loop height should be similar to the previous stitch height. There are still 2 loops on the hook. This is an incomplete treble crochet front post stitch. Next, insert into the gap of the current motif, and the gap of the motif on the left side. Work an incomplete treble crochet front post stitch. Yarn over twice. Insert the hook into the gap of the current motif. Come out through the gap of the motif on the left side. Yarn over and draw through. Slightly enlarge the loop as before. Then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Repeat 2 times. 1 time. 2 times. This completes the incomplete treble crochet front post stitch. There are now 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through all loops in once. Complete the decrease for the treble crochet front post stitch. Next, behind the decrease, pick up the corresponding gap of the starting motif below. Work 4 double crochets. Here I treat the 4 double crochets on each side, and the center decrease as 1 shell stitch motif. Then move left and pick up the gap of the adjacent starting motif. Work 1 single crochet, followed by 5 chain stitches as a bridge. Continue to pick up the gap of the next starting motif. Work 1 single crochet. From now on, except for the treble crochet front post decrease, all other stitches are worked into the corresponding gaps of the starting motifs. I won't explain in detail from here on. Crochet 1 more shell stitch motif downward. First pick up the left side gap, and work 4 double crochets. Then in front, pick up the position between the current starting motif and the left and right motifs. Work a front post treble crochet decrease. First pick up the right side motif and the current motif position. Work an incomplete front post treble crochet. Then pick up the current motif and the left side motif position. Work an incomplete front post treble crochet. Finally yarn over and draw through all loops in once. Complete the front post treble crochet decrease. Then behind the decrease stitch, pick up the position of the current motif. Work 4 double crochets. Complete the shell stitch pattern. Adjacent, continue to pick up the starting chain gap. Make 1 single crochet, 5 chains as a bridge. Then pick up the next starting chain gap. Make 1 single crochet. Afterwards continue alternating crocheting shell stitch pattern and 2 single crochets. Here, 5 chains between each 2 single crochets. Refer to the previous part or the chart for continuing crocheting. My swatch has fewer stitches here. After completing this last shell stitch pattern, there's one foundation pattern left below. Pick up the gap of the motif and make 1 single crochet. 2 chain stitches. Then pick up the chain on the edge of this motif. That is, the insertion point of the previous FPDTR. Work 1 double crochet. At this point, the first row is completed. We'll take the side of this row with the shell stitch texture neatly aligned as the right side of the entire piece. At the same time, this decrease appears raised on the right side of the fabric. The starting yarn tail is on the left side of the piece. Now move on to row 2. Make 1 beginning chain to start. This is the turning chain for single crochet. It doesn't count as 1 stitch. Then turn the work. Pick up the stitch of the edge double crochet from the previous row below. Work 1 single crochet. Here, when crocheting on the wrong side of the previous row, the stitch is located at the upper left. Insert into the corresponding position and crochet. After completing, make 5 chain stitches as a bridge. Next, pick the top of the shell stitch. Counting from right to left, pick the 3rd double crochet. Insert the hook into its stitch and work 1 single crochet. 5 chain stitches as a bridge. Then skip 3 stitches to the left. Slip 1 stitch position. This is also the third stitch counting from the left. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet, 5 chain stitches as a bridge. When meeting the chain space between single crochets of the previous row, make 1 single crochet correspondingly. Coming to the shell stitch pattern afterward. Work a single crochet on the third stitch counting from right to left, and work a single crochet on the third stitch counting from left to right, 5 chain stitches as a bridge between the single crochets. Here, each single crochet is separated by a 5 chain space. When meeting the space between single crochets, make 1 single crochet correspondingly. Continue crocheting with this method afterward. You can also refer to the chart for details. Finish the last single crochet into the chain space. Chain 5 downward. Then pick the third half double crochet position on the left side. Work 1 single crochet. Chain 5. Then pick the gap in the starting pattern on the left side. Work 1 single crochet. Chain 4. Continue to pick the adjacent gap and make 1 single crochet. Chain 2. Make 1 single crochet again in the same position. Row 2 is complete. Continue to row 3. First, chain 5. Turn the work. Pick the second chain space to the left. Work 1 single crochet. Crochet a shell stitch in the adjacent space. First, pick the hole and make 4 double crochets. Then pick the single crochets on both sides of the hole. Work a front post treble crochet decrease. When inserting the hook, go in from the right side of the corresponding single crochet, come out on the left side, pick up the corresponding single crochet in front. After completing, work behind the decrease. Pick the same chain space and work 4 double crochets. Complete the shell stitch pattern. Then pick the next 2 adjacent holes and work single crochets. 5 chains between each 2 single crochets as a bridge. After completing, correspondingly make a shell stitch to the left. First, pick the hole and work 4 double crochets. Then pick the single crochet positions on both sides of the hole, work a front post treble crochet decrease. Then pick the same hole behind the decrease and work 4 double crochets. Complete the shell stitch pattern. Alternate crocheting shell stitch pattern and 2 single crochets. 5 chains between each 2 single crochets as a bridge. Refer to the previous part or the chart for continuing crocheting. Complete the last shell stitch pattern. There is 1 chain space remaining below. Work 1 single crochet correspondingly. 2 chains. Then pick up the single crochet stitch from the edge of the previous row. Work 1 treble crochet correspondingly. Row 3 is now completed. Now you can take a look whether the crocheted fabric lies flat. If it's not lying flat, gently pull and stretch it a bit. If still not flat, you'll need to start over with a new foundation chain. Crochet the starting chain more loosely. You can also check the measurements here. If the size differs significantly, continue to crochet row 4. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Pick up 1 stitch from the edge below. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet. 5 chains as a bridge. Then pick up a stitch above the shell stitch, and work a single crochet. 5 chains on both left and right sides as spaces. The single crochets worked above the shell stitch are always into the 3rd stitch counted from right to left, and the 3rd stitch counted from left to right. When you meet the chain space between single crochets from the previous row, correspondingly make 1 single crochet. Continue crocheting in the same way as before, or refer to the chart. After completing the last single crochet into the chain space of the previous row, work 5 chains downward. Then pick up the left side starting chain space, and work 1/2 double crochet. 5 chains. Into the adjacent space work 1 single crochet. 3 chains. Into the next space work 1 single crochet. Row 4 is complete. Continue to row 5. First work 2 chain stitches. Turn the work. Skip the adjacent chain space to the left. Insert into the next space along with the single crochets, and half double crochets on both sides. Work a shell stitch pattern. When you meet a half double crochet, use the same insertion method. Insert from the right side, come out on the left side, pick up and correspondingly make a half double crochet. After completing, continue to work a single crochet into the left side space. 5 chains. Single crochet in the adjacent chain space. Keep going with the shell stitch. Single crochet and 5 chains. Here the pattern matches up with the one below. Finish the last shell stitch. Pick up the edge chain space and work 1 single crochet, 2 chains. Insert hook into the edge stitch and work 1 treble crochet. The 5th round is completed, then work row 6. The method is similar to row 4. Correspondingly make single crochet and 5 chains. After finishing the previous row section, continue to pick up stitches in the gaps and crochet half double crochets and single crochets, separated by the corresponding number of chain stitches. Refer to the chart and finish this row accordingly. After completing, work row 7. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Pick the second single crochet position to the left, and work a front post treble crochet. First work the incomplete front post double crochet. Two loops remain on the hook. Yarn over and draw through all loops in once. Complete the front post treble crochet, then pick the corresponding hole behind and below. Work 4 double crochets. After that, continue crocheting according to the chart. Finish the last stitch. Row 7 is now complete. For rows 8 through 14 afterward, on the right side, still insert the hook into the corresponding starting chain space. From row 15 onward, work even without increasing or decreasing. When ending at the top of the turning chain from the previous row, you can insert the hook into the edge turning chain space. During this time, pay attention to certain areas. The number of chains between single crochets changes. The chart has corresponding markings. Make sure not to crochet incorrectly. If the yarn runs out while crocheting, you can tie a knot to join new yarn. Here I'll demonstrate the method using a swatch. Move the yarn tail to the wrong side of the fabric, then tie a double knot close to the fabric. Then continue working. Leave the yarn tail on the back side for now, don't deal with it yet. This is the method of joining yarn with a knot. After completing all crocheting, break the yarn and weave in the ends. Here I'm demonstrating with a small swatch. First, cut the yarn. Then weave the tail to the wrong side. You can weave in for several stitches to secure it. All remaining yarn tails can be woven in on the backside using the same method. Complete this step on your own. Now, the crocheting of the skirt body is finished. Next, we'll add the edging. Work back and forth along both sides and the starting edge of the skirt. You'll need to increase stitches at certain points along the way. The new stitch techniques used are single crochet increase, 3 SC in 1. Watch me demonstrate. Here I'm using this swatch for demonstration. Position the side of the skirt with the curved edge to the right. With the starting yarn tail on the left side. Then locate the edge of the last row on the top. Pick up the single crochet stitch on the edge. Or insert hook under both strands of the edge stitch to join the yarn. Make one beginning chain to start. Work one single crochet in the same spot. Then move left and pick the gap of the adjacent row's edge. Make 2 single crochets. Next, pick the insertion point of one edge stitch. Work one single crochet, which is also the stitch of the single crochet below. Pick the adjacent edge stitch and work a single crochet. Continue along this side. Pick either the stitch or the gap of each edge stitch respectively. Correspondingly make single crochets. The number of single crochets is marked on the chart. You can also work the corresponding number of single crochets in each area. The insertion point is not fixed, as long as the fabric lies flat and looks neat after finishing. Continue crocheting downward. In my swatch, the stitch count is arbitrary. Finish the edge of the first row. Moving down, pick the gap of the starting chain pattern, and work 3 single crochets. Crochet around the edge while hiding the yarn tail for the starting chain as you go. Then mark the center stitch of these 3 stitches. You can use a stitch marker to mark it. If you don't have a stitch marker, just use a safety pin or paper clip instead. This marked position is the first increase point. You'll need to increase at this spot later. After that, continue picking up the gap of the starting chain pattern. Work the corresponding number of single crochets. In my swatch, the stitch count is arbitrary. Please refer to the chart for specifics. Continue adjacent, pick up the gap and work the corresponding single crochets. Moving forward, pick up the gaps at the starting chain, and correspondingly make single crochets. Continue until right before the second increase point marked on the chart. down to the corresponding position. Work single crochets accordingly. And mark the specified stitch. Then continue picking up the gaps in the starting chain. Follow the chart to crochet the corresponding number of stitches, until just before the third increase point. Down to the corresponding position. Here, roughly match the position and work 2 single crochets. Then mark each of these 2 stitches. This is the third increase point. After that, continue picking up chain spaces along this edge, roughly matching stitch counts to work single crochets. Refer to the chart for stitch count. Complete the last row on the side. At this point, the first row is completed. Here you can check if the fabric lies flat. If it's not quite flat, adjust the stitch count as needed, and recrochet accordingly. Pay attention, the positions of the increase points remain unchanged. Work the second row down. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Then work 1 single crochet into each stitch. When you reach the marked increase position, this is the third increase point. Insert the hook into the adjacent stitch to the left and work a single crochet increase. Make 2 single crochets into the same stitch. 1 stitch. 2 stitches. Complete the single crochet increase. You can move this stitch marker to a roughly corresponding stitch below. To make it easier to find this spot later. No increase needed in the adjacent position. Work 1 single crochet into each stitch. You can remove the adjacent stitch marker. Now reaching the next marked point. This is the second marked position. No increase here for now. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet, move the stitch marker to the top. Continue working single crochets evenly below. Now reaching the next increase point. Here you need to make a 3 SC in 1. Pick up the corresponding position and work 3 single crochets. 1 stitch. 2 stitches. 3 stitches. Complete the 3 SC in 1. You can move the stitch marker to the centered stitch. Work single crochets into each stitch evenly. Complete the last single crochet. Row 2 is now done. Start row 3 by working down. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Work single crochets evenly into each stitch below. Continue until right before the 3SC1 marker. Reaching the corresponding position, pick up the marked stitch and work a 3SC1. Move the stitch marker to the center single crochet. Continue with single crochets. Skip increasing at the next marker position for now. After completing the single crochets, proceed to mark. Keep crocheting down the row until right before the third increase point, single crochet increase. 1 stitch remaining. Reaching the corresponding position, pick up the adjacent stitch and work a single crochet increase. Continue working single crochets evenly into the remaining stitches. Complete the last stitch. Row 3 is now completed. Start row 4 going down. At the third increase point position, pick the adjacent corresponding position of the previous increase and make an increase. At the second increase point, work a single crochet increase at the marked position. At the first increase point, work a 3SC1 at the corresponding position. On row 5, at the first increase point, continue with a 3SC1. At the second increase point, do not increase. You can remove the stitch marker. Continue increasing at the third increase point position. On row 6, work even without increases or decreases. All marked stitch markers can be removed. From now on, follow the chart to complete the remaining rows. Once completed, cut the yarn and weave in the ends. That concludes the explanation for the edging section. Next, crochet the skirt waist along the edges on both sides above the skirt body. Work back and forth in rows. For the last row, you'll be crocheting along the completed part and the edging area. 2 new stitches will be used. Reverse single crochet and slip stitch. Watch me demonstrate. With the right side of the fabric facing you, locate the first stitch at the right edge of the edging. Insert hook into the stitch to join yarn. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet. Remember to weave in ends as you crochet. Then move left, insert hook into the edge stitch of each row, and work 1 single crochet into each stitch correspondingly. Moving up along the back skirt section. At the position where single crochet begins, insert hook into the stitch and make 1 single crochet. When you meet a chain space going downward, insert hook into the chain space and make 2 single crochets. For the rest of the upper back skirt, always insert hook into chain spaces and correspondingly make single crochets. Please refer to the chart for crocheting. My swatch stitch count is arbitrary. At the skirt edge, where single crochet is placed, correspondingly make 1 single crochet, then for the edging area, pick up 1 stitch along the edge. Work single crochets evenly into each stitch. After completing, check the stitch count. Now row 1 is completed. For rows 2 to 3, work even single crochets without increasing or decreasing. Complete these rows on your own. After finishing, crochet row 4. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. This row requires crocheting spaces. Small and large sizes use the same method, only the number of single crochets at the beginning and end differ. Here I'll demonstrate using the small size as an example. For large size, refer to the pattern. Now pick up stitches moving leftward. Make 2 single crochets evenly. Then chain 3. Skip 3 stitches below. Pick up and crochet 5 single crochets in the back loops. Then chain 3. Skip 3 stitches below. Work 5 single crochets downward. Continue following the pattern of 3 chains, 5 single crochets. After each chain of 3, always skip 3 stitches below. Finish the last 3 chain stitches. After skipping 3 stitches below, work single crochets evenly into the remaining stitches. My swatch stitch count is not for reference. Row 4 has been explained. Continue to crochet row 5. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Work single crochets correspondingly into each stitch below. When reaching a chain space, pick up the chain space and make 3 single crochets. For all following chain spaces, pick up the space and make 3 single crochets. For all other positions, work single crochets into each stitch correspondingly. Complete the last stitch. Row 5 is completed. For rows 6 to 15 after this, just follow the chart to crochet. After finishing, crochet row 16. Here I'll demonstrate the method using a swatch. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Skip 1 stitch. On the left side, insert hook into the stitch and work 1 slip stitch. Then continue with 2 chains. Skip 2 stitches. Work 1 slip stitch. From now on, follow the pattern, 2 chains, 1 slip stitch. After the chain, skip 2 stitches underneath. Keep going all the way to the end until 2 stitches remain. When you reach the corresponding position, work 1 chain stitch down, skip 1 stitch, pick up the edge and work 1 slip stitch. Row 16 is complete. Start row 17 going down. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Then pick the stitch on the adjacent row's right side edge, where the single crochet was worked. Pick up the stitch loop, which is the position where the last slip stitch was made. Work a reverse single crochet. Insert the hook from front into the corresponding position. Yarn over and pull through. There are now 2 twisted loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through in once. Reverse single crochet is complete. Let me demonstrate again. Insert the hook from front into the corresponding stitch on the right side of the adjacent row. Yarn over and pull through. Then yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook. Reverse single crochet is complete. For the waist area going back, pick the corresponding stitch along the edge of each row. Work reverse single crochets evenly, 1 stitch per row. When you reach the previously crocheted edging position, pick up stitches and work reverse single crochets evenly, 1 by 1. Continue all the way to the edge of the 15th row on this side. Complete the corresponding position, then fasten off the yarn. Hide the yarn tail to the wrong side. That's it for the method of row 17. And with that, the skirt waist section is also complete. Finally, attach the buttons. Before attaching, fold the fabric and try it on to check the fit. Here I'll first lay it flat to demonstrate the method of folding the fabric. Place the wrong side of the skirt body facing up. The curvy side of the skirt body should be on the left side. Then fold the current right side inward. Fold the left side inward as well, overlapping it on top of the right side, creating a 3-layer folded effect in the fabric. Now the curvy side of the skirt body is on the right side. When actually wearing it, the wrong side of the fabric faces inward. Then fold the left and right sides in order. Fold the right side first, then fold the left side. My left and right here refer to the left and right when the fabric is laid flat. Finally, the curvy side will be on the front side of the fabric. Now put together to check the waist dimension, at the position where the fit is proper. Use stitch markers to mark a few points on the overlapping sections. Mark the front and back fabric pieces separately, where they overlap. On the folded edge, Roughly mark the corresponding positions once aligned. You can double check if the dimension fits well. Once it fits, begin attaching the buttons. Here, lay the fabric flat using the same folding method as before. Then align the marked positions on both sides. Keep the folded area unchanged. With the right side facing you. On the left side of the fabric, install the clear round buttons on the inner side. On the back piece, there are 3 rows of chain spaces in that position. Use the top row and the bottom row. The 2 chain spaces closest to the edge. On the corresponding front fabric piece. Install the round buttons close to the corresponding chain spaces. You can mark the positions at the chain spaces. Here, sew on 4 buttons. Mark the positions like this. Then sew the buttons right below the chain spaces. Note that the buttons are sewn on the wrong side of the front fabric piece. The back piece's chain spaces are buttonholes. Next, I'll demonstrate the sewing method. Here, I'll demonstrate the technique using a swatch. The swatch can be placed anywhere. Take a piece of crocheting yarn, thread the needle. Make sure the needle can pass through the hole. Then place the button below the chain space. You can position it vertically or horizontally. Then sew through 2 holes. For a secure hold, sew a few times. If you want the front side to look neater. When sewing, you can also pick up the yarn from the wrong side. After completing, tie a knot to secure the yarn tail. Hide the remaining strands inside the fabric. Now 1 circular button is attached. Attach the rest of the buttons using the same method. Complete this part on your own. Finally, attach the outer buttons. Use the same technique on the overlapping end. At the top and bottom rows of chain spaces on the inner fabric piece. Sew underneath the hole to secure. There are also 4 buttons. The installation method is the same. Complete this on your own. When wearing it finally, first fasten the inner button to the corresponding position. Then fasten the outer button to the corresponding position. Here, the button placement and effect can be adjusted according to your preference. Now the button section is complete. Up to this point, the entire half skirt making process has been fully explained. If you still have unclear parts during the crocheting process, don't hesitate to join our Facebook group to get supports. Susan's family, thread by thread, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.